Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening. Folks, thank you very, very much for listening. The date is the 16th, the month is February, and the year is 2026. Welcome to yet another edition of the Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hingle, a.k.a. Motano. I'm taping this moments after the All-Star game ended. All-Star weekend is officially over in the NBA, thank God. I gotta tell you, man, it's a miracle what it can do to the product. The format doesn't matter. The format has never mattered. It's always just been a matter of like getting one guy to buy in that, you know, convinces everybody else to try. Well, I'm good for Victor Wembanyama for just like being the guy who was like, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to care and I'm going to take this seriously and I'm going to play hard and I'm just going to hope that everybody else decides to play hard. And that is what happened. Everybody followed suit. Anthony Edwards was playing very hard. Kawhi Leonard playing very hard. Kawhi Leonard, he's like, hey, Adam Silver, see, I'm saving the All-Star game. Please don't ban me for the rest of the season. You know, don't suspend me. Whatever it is that you're going to do to the Clippers, maybe just think twice about it. Because I'm saving the All-Star game here. I've got 31 points in 11 minutes. I've only missed 2 shots. I'm saving the All-Star game, Adam Silver. I don't think it will absolve him of his crimes. It's crazy, though. It's crazy that Adam Silver can do media availability, and Kawhi can do media availability, and Steve Ballmer can do media availability. You know, in Los Angeles at Intuit Dome during All-Star Weekend, in the middle of, I don't know, the NBA is kind of facing. They got like a war on 5 fronts right now. They got a lot of fires that they're putting out, while also not really putting any of them out or addressing that anything's even burning in the first place or that there's even a war going on. On really any of the fronts, to be honest with you. It is crazy to me, though, that the commissioner can get really no questions. He's not, the 30 minutes that Adam Silver did of media availability, every single question was not about aspiration. And when Kawhi was doing his availability, you know, every single question was not about aspiration. And it's just crazy when the All-Star game is at Intuit Dome. It's at where the Clippers' new break-off stadium. They finally get their own stadium. And it's this brand, this state of the art, biometric farming, tech safe haven, and this whole thing is just not really addressed. And despite the fact that everybody else elsewhere is talking about it this weekend, you know, nobody's actually. That's not the one thing, the only thing that these people are being grilled about. Oh, okay, I guess it's nice, I guess, if you're Adam Silver, that this tanking conversation has really taken on a life of its own. In such a major way that, you know, to the extent that, I mean, you could really get away with those being the headlines from the weekend if you're Adam Silver, is just what their commitment has been to, you know, solving this tanking crisis, this tanking epidemic that we've had in the NBA. And it's not even for how long was I about to say, like, what's that? This has been going on forever. I mean, forever. For 40 years this has been going on. Tanking isn't a new problem. It's just that teams have gotten more creative it's not even about creativity, honestly. It's just, in a lot of ways, they've just gotten more blatant with it. And Utah has been the prime example of this. And we covered it very briefly in the last episode, but everybody's talking about this. Everybody is talking about, the tank job that Utah is doing right now. Both them and the Pacers within this last week, both getting fines. Not substantial fines. I think that the Jazz got fined like $500,000 for sitting healthy players, and I'm assuming that's what the fine was actually for. And then the Pacers got a $100,000 fine for. I'm assuming it was something similar. So again, man, I just think it's interesting that was the thing that everybody was so up in arms about this week, to the point that it did give Adam Silver an out. I think to not really address in a substantial way to really address the aspiration thing. You know, especially on the heels of like more just another Pablo Torre dump, like another dump of information coming out that clearly something happened here. And eventually the NBA will be backed into a corner. I just think it's crazy that we're at the All-Star break and it hasn't happened yet. That there hasn't really been on any real communication or language on this yet. Considering when it first came out, we said, okay, let's give the NBA a little bit of grace here. Let's let them do their own due diligence and hire their own private investigators. As if to say, because at the time, it wasn't entirely clear if the league had prior knowledge of an instance like this happening. I think by now we probably know that like the NBA was aware that it to some extent, if not to the full extent, had been going on behind the scenes. And, if they did, obviously they sat on their hands for years. I mean, it sounds like the Clippers were doing deals with Uncle Dennis, years before Kawhi was in, not even in Los Angeles, before he was even in Toronto. It sounds like Uncle Dennis was doing some deals with the Clippers. So this was, the long game here is it's crazy to, to think about. I don't know. I think it stinks. It's really left a bad taste in my mouth this weekend because I'm really I'm at a strange point, man, where, I talk about the NBA facing, there's so many fires that they're trying to put out right now. Again, though, without really even acknowledging that so many of these fires are going on. And so there are a couple conspiracies I think that I'm starting to believe, and then which I think there are a few things happening here. I think one is that I'm just at a point in my life, I think a lot of us are feeling this way right now here in the United States, which is I am so deeply distrustful of all institutions, all of them. It was one thing in the past to just be like, fuck the government, that's sort of one thing. That's like surface level. And then, but the deeper you go, I mean, once you start getting into the sports leagues, like, man, fuck these guys too. I don't trust anybody right now. So I think because of that, I'm just feeling a little bit more, just by nature, I'm just more conspiratorial these days. Like that can for sure be true. While also at the same time, what else is true is I just think there's like some kind of funny business going on in the NBA right now. I think there's something funny going on. And so these two conspiracies that I'm starting to latch onto, and again, these are also part of the wars that are being waged on the NBA. And the first one, just to stick to the tanking thing, is like, okay, so wait a minute. So we spent the full week. We spent like all of the week going into the All-Star break, and then when we were doing media availability, like all people were talking about again was what Utah was doing and how, the goalposts move every year with tanking and blah, blah, blah. But like the genesis of this tanking conversation that dominated NBA media for the last week, the central focus of it was the Utah Jazz. Well, then once we get to the end of that week, there are these little murmurs that start to come out that all of this focus on Utah and their tanking efforts has actually been a product of the Oklahoma City Thunder, in back channels, Sam Presti and shit. He's the one kind of like tapping on the league's shoulder being like, hey, you want to maybe pay attention to how egregious and flagrant Utah is being about their tank efforts this year? Because they have a protection on their pick. I think it's top 8 protected. So if they fall within the top 8, they get to make their pick. If they fall outside of the top 8, I believe it goes to Oklahoma City. And so Oklahoma City's like, look, you guys have good players. You have to play them. So it's like, okay, that's a really interesting little piece of information. And so it leads me to this conspiracy, which is substantiated by absolutely nothing. I dove into the investment histories, the investment portfolios for not just Sam Presti, which isn't even that's not even the real guy I was looking after, but, I was just, trying to be thorough. I looked into Clay Bennett, man. I haven't said what the conspiracy is. I think Oklahoma City, somebody in the organization is using dead internet theory to their advantage and like manufacturing dialogue over this tanking business via like bot farms, like hardcore. I really think that's happening because there's too much dialogue about this. There's way too much discourse about what hashtag Utah is. How do I say this? What Utah is hashtag doing right now. There's too much conversation about it. We do this every year. Like again, two things can be true. One, we do the same damn conversation every single year. Once the trade deadline passes and it's the All-Star break, we realize we don't really have anything to talk about for a few more months. You always say, well, January, you're starting to get into the dog days of the NBA. No, because at least you can still talk about the trade deadline. But then once that comes and goes, you're like, the buyout market every year gives you like 3 days, in totality, gives you like 3 days worth of content. But otherwise, the bread and butter is just kind of pulling rabbits out of hats. And usually at this point of the year is when we're talking about, if not the MVP, which we will do a little bit today, if it's not that, which it really hasn't been, but again, we're going to talk a little bit later about why I think we're just not really talking about MVP that much. But if it's not that, then I guess we got to start talking about tanking. So that's true. We do that every year. And then also 3 things are true. We do also move the goalposts for like who it is every year. Like, it's cute to people that Indiana is just committing to the gap year thing because we know that they are otherwise a good team who's just kind of in a shitty, well, it's not really a shitty circumstance. The way you want to look at this at this point is that it's a fortuitous circumstance because if they end up getting, Darren Peterson or Timbasta, is that how you say it? I saw a guy wearing his BYU jersey at the zoo today. Absolutely out of this world. That guy rocks. Whoever it is that they get, as long as Indiana gets a top 5 pick, the odds of them getting like an all-star are decently high. And then they'll just go back to being a good team. But because Utah is doing literally the exact same thing, only they weren't in the finals like 8 months ago, it's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, we do move the goalpost to some extent. When Oklahoma City was doing this a few years ago, it wasn't a problem, but now it is, and I get you can make that, you can say it's apples and oranges and you can make all these comparisons. I'm just saying the principle of these teams committing to losing and being as bad as possible is not a new thing. This is a concept that has been around for, again, decades at this point. So how do you circumvent it? I don't know, but I think Sam Presti's the one. He's trying to figure it out, man. Sam Presti's trying to figure out. I think they're bot farming. Because at this point, if you're somebody, like, if you're like a comment section ass bitch, you know what I mean? And like you like be mixing it up underneath like some posts, wherever it is that, whatever social media it is that you use. Like when you're, I don't want to say like networking with those people. When you're interacting with those people, in 2026, what are the odds that the person on the opposite end of that interaction is like not real, like for real, not real, I'm sure there actually are some, I'm sure there's like data to actually back this up and real thorough research that's been done. My guess, the odds that the person on the opposite, well, it does depend on where you are. Like if it's just some like random Twitter thread and somebody's like, Grok, is this real? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think one in 10 you're mixing it with people on like Instagram comments. I don't know. It really does. There's so many variables here. It depends. But the truth is, no matter what the number is that there are more bots on the internet than there ever has been, and the amount of times that you've unknowingly interacted with one of them, it's unknowable. But I think that's happening here because, again, there's just way too many people talking about this shit. Now, the second conspiracy that I'm not presenting this as a new idea. I think we've all kind of been in on this for like the last week. But let's just make the stance of the show clear because we have gotten a lot of emails about this. So this Giannis Kalshi partnership, for those of you, if I don't know, if somehow if you haven't seen this, if you haven't heard about this, so a day after the trade deadline, like last week, literally a day after the trade deadline, Giannis announces a partnership with predictive market titan of industry, Kalshi, which is just again, if you, there's no way you don't know, but it's just one of those, it's a predictive market site where you can just like gamble on literally anything. You can bet on anything. You can bet on, will Donald Trump say the word nasty today in a speech? You can bet on shit like that. It raised a lot of suspicion. It raised a lot of flags for people, not just because it's such a predatory partnership to make in the first place, and the fact that Giannis would even get in bed with these people really stinks. It's really a larger, you zoom out on this and it's really a larger observation to make about, whoever your favorite guy is in the NBA, the odds are for a lot of you, in some form, it's like Giannis, Steph, KD, LeBron, like the odds are it could be one of those guys. And if you just look into the investment history and, well, the portfolios of those guys, yikes, man. Oh my God. None of those guys are coming out clean. All of them in some form are invested. I guess Giannis, I don't know for sure. But this Kalshi business is pretty gross. It's not as bad, I guess, as, like Steph and KD investing in like Israeli surveillance and like drones and shit like that. It could be worse. It's still just bad business from Giannis. But where I'm going with this is like, I don't know. We learned that Shams a few years ago, like real life got in trouble because he used his position, one that is of supreme power and influence in the media sphere. He used his position to juice odds on either FanDuel or DraftKings, whoever the partner for, I think it was FanDuel, whoever the partner was for he did it during the draft. He was like, doing like smoke and mirrors for, I don't remember who it was, saying like, ooh, are they going to get drafted in this position? And he was just doing bullshit to like juice some odds. Like, we know that he's gotten in trouble for stuff like this before. Well, does it not make at least a little bit of sense if we're going with the theory that, which I have not even said yet, that Giannis and Shams are in cahoots together, which is, it's so on the nose the way that it is being presented. If this is actually true, they're just not doing a good job hiding it at all. But well, my response to that would be is that most of the shit that's happening in the world today that's bad is happening right in front of our eyes, and the only reason that it continues to happen is because nothing is done about it. You know what I mean? So, like, yes, actually, I think that it's not inconceivable to think that it is so on the nose that it could be true. But at the same time, I don't think, it's as surface level. What I'm saying is exactly the way that it is. That Giannis and Shams are working together and doing, like, back channel deals via predictive markets. Well, I don't know, when one of the guys that would be implicated in this, if it were true, has already gotten in trouble for doing something similar in the past. And then when you couple that with the fact that, listen, brother, we spent the last 3 months every single week getting a new Giannis update, right? Giannis updates that were ostensibly real, and then a week later when Giannis would go out and, like, not really contradict the report, but just be like, I don't know, whatever happens. He just wouldn't be the bad guy and say that he wanted to leave. And then, the closer we get. So, like, basically, what was I'm sure one of you will be able to tell me this. How much money was won on, like, will Giannis get traded by the deadline? And, the people who the people who took the action know, what did that look like? I don't know. Again, I think both of these conspiracies really do just come off as, again, somebody who is just currently in a state of deep distrust of his surroundings and of the institutions that he once held so near and dear to his heart. And so, I don't know. I tell you what, though, if you want to talk about something else that we know actually, we don't know for a fact that this is real, but this is something that has only started to transpire in the last couple of hours. So the emails have just been flooding in. And so there's not even one in particular that I could read here, to be honest with you, because they're all just kind of... So let's just do it. The KD files, that's what they're calling it. They're calling them the KD files. So if you haven't seen this and you haven't heard about this, again, this is only a couple hours old. So by the time that you hear me talking about this, maybe more stuff has come out. Like I have no idea. This is pretty fresh. The KD files, that's what they're calling it. So... Man, where do we start? It sounds like another burner of KD's. It's literally the 9/11 meme of George Bush reading to first graders and finding out that a second plane has hit the tower. You know what picture I'm talking about? Another KD burner has been discovered. Okay. All right. So far, nothing out of the ordinary. It's like, what do you think? Just because he got caught 10 years ago, posting on, like, his alt, like, you think just because he got caught that he doesn't do it anymore? Okay. People giving him a lot of shit for that so far. Okay, all right. Well, let's just see where this is going. So basically, he got, somebody had been collecting screenshots for years in a group chat that KD was in on a burner. Now, we don't know for sure that it's Kevin Durant, but you'll just have to believe me that there is a lot of evidence to suggest that Kevin Durant is behind this account on Twitter. There's a mountain of evidence to suggest that this is real. So we will be acting as if it is, because I'm pretty sure that this is real. And in these DMs, now I don't want to read a lot of them, honestly, any of them to you, because they're pretty wild. He says some wild shit about current teammates on the Rockets, past teammates when he was playing with the Suns. Like there was one comment about, like, oh, when we, like, he's just for real, like, chopping it up with, like, randoms on Twitter, I guess. Or maybe these are other burners from here. Who fucking knows? Maybe these are other guys. But, like, just openly, like, shit-talking, teammates past and present. And, like, so there was one about the Suns when it was like, oh, whenever we lose, it's my team. But whenever we win, it's Book's team. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that where it's like a slight little jab. Or there's, like, something about, like, Şengün and, like, turnovers and stuff like that. Like, he's really just, like, like, getting into people and, like, lighting people up. Saying some crazy out-of-pocket shit about a lot of people. Again, a lot of them I'm just not going to read because on the show, it's super wild. But I'm just telling you, man, so many of you guys over email are like, oh man, like, what is this? Like, is his career over? Like, does he get waived? The fuck? How is he going to look at his teammates? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just seeing people be so damn polarized by this. And I don't feel it at all. I'm just thinking I might need to debut as a new guy. And that guy being someone who's just not polarized by stuff. He tries his superpower is that he tries really, really hard not to be polarized by stuff. And so something like this happens and people, because this is my thing, is like, again, it's in some way, I'm not really trying to make it, I'm not trying to like, make just a half-assed low-hanging fruit, goof here. But like, you know how a lot of the shit that's coming out and like what we are currently referring to as the Epstein files, because that's what they are. I say currently referred to as. But what I mean is like, there's so much shit that's like, quote unquote, coming out that we knew about 10 years ago because of the WikiLeaks shit. You know what I mean? With Hillary Clinton's private email server. All those WikiLeaks emails that came out. Well, this is the problem with the Epstein shit, is so much of what we are now accepting as truth, fact, and reality was actually like revealed 10 years ago, but was immediately labeled as right-wing conspiracy because the release of those emails is what contributed to Donald Trump getting elected. So we didn't actually view it. You know what I mean? And the construction of this greater like QAnon narrative was like super carefully curated and spun on the opposition, on the leftists of America. So like we just labeled it on the leftists of America. We're just like, you guys are fucking insane. Pizzagate's not real. You guys are insane. And we just kind of like made it a different thing, right? Even though like now it's, so where I'm going with this and how I'm saying like this all ties together. We've known Kevin Durant has been online on a different account that is not his main one for like 10 years now. And so I don't understand why it's so crazy. And like you see so many people being like, oh, he's almost 40-year-old guy. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have any kids. Like all he does is hoop and like sit online and like tweet. I'm like, most of you motherfuckers do the same thing. If you take away the money, you guys are the same guy and you guys are hating on him. Like put a mirror up to yourself. I'm not trying to like cape for Kevin Durant here. I'm just saying like, what did we learn here? It's not even like, what's the problem here? Like, what's the problem here? Let's zoom out on that. What's the question here? What did Kevin Durant do wrong? He said super fucked up shit about his teammates. Okay, to you and me, those are like teammates that like we know because we remember them on other teams or we remember them at college or AAU and, we've seen all their funny interviews and stuff. And so like we know them and like we like to, in a more parasocial and like quote unquote intimate way. So like we see them as professional athletes. To Kevin Durant, these are his damn coworkers. You've never said insane shit about your coworkers to other people ever? Does it ever happen? I don't know. I'm not trying to make this into a whole like, remember, to do another Trump example. When the whole, right before the 2016 election, the whole grab him by the pussy thing came out. And the locker room talk thing that we had to do for a month, where conservatives were like, you never just hang out with the fellas and talk about raping a woman? We had to say with straight faces, no, we don't do that. We honestly don't do that shit. So I'm not trying to be like, you never talk shit about your coworkers and make this like a locker room talk thing, but also fuck you. Cause we all do. You don't say if we leaked your group chats, you know what I mean? If we leaked the one group chat that I'm in, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be fine. I mean, I don't say super out of pocket shit in there. Maybe if I was with a different crew of people, I 100% would. How many of you guys are right? So it's a problem when Kevin Durant is saying this shit, on Twitter and group chats. But when you're in a Call of Duty lobby with the boys, you know what I mean? When it was it, because which is it? Right? Because there's only one of these things can be true. People always like to say, oh, these kids could never handle, Modern Warfare 2 lobbies in 2009. These kids are too soft these days. Well, what happens when some of that shit goes live from one of your favorite athletes and you find out he's still saying that shit in the big 2-6? What happens then? Now who can't survive the lobbies? It's you. You're a 29-year-old man and you're clutching your pearls over Kevin Durant calling Jabari Smith retarded? Who cares? You don't even like Jabari Smith that much. He can't even dribble. Maybe he is. Who knows? This manufactured, like, what's going to happen to Kevin Durant? It's funny to see him panic. When I talk about, like, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is real. Some of that evidence is that, again, this was like 2 hours before the All-Star game started. Kevin Durant is doing player introductions, and he's just on his phone. He's just on his phone. Oh. He's like on the bench and he's just on his phone. So he was panicking. He was 100% panicking. Like, I'm not going to say like putting out fires and doing damage control. But you could just imagine how many group chats that guy was in and out of being like, who the fuck, who snitched? Like, how did all this stuff come out? Because that's one thing. I don't know how this stuff came out. It's just like, it's still happening. So I don't know how this happened. It's funny though. I think we're going to stop talking about this in like a week. Unless it does cause a rift in the locker room, which, like, I don't know, maybe it will. I think, I don't know. Is this like I'm just trying to think, like, what's the precedent here? The only other thing that I can think of that would be like, it's not the same thing, but it's like the closest that I can get is like the D'Angelo Russell, like, videotaping Nick Young being like, I love cheating on Iggy Azalea. And then what? Like, posting that video? For some unknowable reason, he just posted that video, and it ruined his marriage with or maybe they weren't married. I don't remember. It ruined his relationship with Iggy Azalea. Not that was technically D'Angelo Russell's fault. I mean, Nick Young's the one that cheated, but you know what I mean. God damn, remember that? People didn't think D'Angelo Russell was going to survive in the league because it was such a big deal. It was such a big deal. So I'm only bringing that up to say, like, is that the closest that you can get in terms of like a major locker room rift? Because what was the Matt Barnes, Derek Fisher thing? One of them was I think Derek Fisher was a coach at the time, wasn't he? And how did that go? Like, it was something like this. Derek Fisher was dating Matt Barnes' ex, and then Matt Barnes drove like 2 hours to punch Derek Fisher in the face. Is that what it was? I think one of them was out of the league at the time, so I don't think that counts. I think it's the D'Angelo Russell thing. People didn't think, I'm telling you, man, people thought he was going to be out of the league. People thought that there's no way, whenever he gets traded, which did end up happening, like, how do you, like, nobody's going to respect him. Nobody's going to fuck with this guy. I wonder how many times D'Lo actually gets asked about that. And then out of those, like, I don't want to say since it's happened, because obviously it's been a lot. But I don't know, like it's been a while since, like, it's not even a thing that affects him anymore. People don't talk about this. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, since he left Brooklyn, we'll say that. Since he left Brooklyn and they were really fun with Kenny Atkinson for like 40 games and they were like darlings, and then they, like, how many times has he been asked? And then does he get asked by at least one person whenever he goes to a new team and he's got new teammates? I'd be curious to know that too. Otherwise, I don't know. I can't think of another thing that, like, ripped apart a locker room like this. I mean, maybe when Javaris Crinton and Gilbert Arenas almost shot each other in the locker room. Maybe that, but at this point, that was 25 years ago. So, yeah, we're really kind of grasping at straws here. The tunnel thing, then the Clippers, no, that was different because that wasn't within, like, that wasn't a team thing. That was a team versus team thing. No, so that one doesn't really count. We'll let it play out. Look, I'm not going to say either way, is this not going to matter? Because maybe it will. We'll have to see how the team responds to it. I don't know. And, like, the players respond to it. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like, this energy being directed at Kevin Durant because we know that he still has a burner. It's like, yeah. Also, again, like, people just, like, kind of be having burners. We just normalized it in culture. People call them alt accounts. They call them, like, Finstas. You know what I mean? It's not really having, like, a burner anymore to, like, defend your own honor. Now, when it happened to KD originally, that was when it was, like, super scandalous and controversial to be like, I mean, even now, it's corny to be, like, mixing it up in your own comments, like, pretending to be somebody else, even though you're only, you know what I mean? Like, that's always going to be a thing that people kind of scoff at. But just that, I don't know. The guy be posting. The guy, he be online. It's like, we know this about him. We've always known this about him. And then when he does shit that, like, is, like, super chronically online of him to do, everybody is all fucking surprised Pikachu at him. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, he's shown you who he is forever. And then when he keeps doing that thing and everybody is so damn shocked by it, that's when I'm like, huh? So if he's just talking to random guys, like, if these are just, like, random, like, 20-year-olds, or like 25, like, however old these dudes are, like, then I'm kind of like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? But otherwise, I don't know. I just think he's kind of Kevin Durant. Let's do some emails, folks. copinghoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically, email available in the description, wherever it is that you listen to this program. Let's check out this one from Malcolm. Malcolm, welcome back to the show. Hey, Nick, I was thinking about the 65 game rule and decided to put together a chart of 15-ish guys that would be in contention for the first, second, and third teams or MVP. I think it's incredibly interesting that it may disqualify Wemby, Jokic, Luka Doncic from award contention, all of which are very close to having missed 17 games. As to qualify for awards, you must play 65, which gives 17 allowable missed games over an entire season. Now, Malcolm here included a very helpful chart, and I will do my best to explain the helpfulness of this chart to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you a player and how many games they can miss for the rest of the season in order to qualify for MVP or for all NBA honors. You know, like even like LeBron's officially out of it now. He's not on this list here, but LeBron, I believe, is officially out of it. He's been out of it for a little bit, or it's just for a couple weeks. So his like 20 some odd years in a row of making all NBA is officially done, which stinks. And then also the context, before I read you like how many games they can miss, the context of how many teams each of these guys have left. I'm sorry, the context of how many games each of these players have left for their teams. You know, the average is like, we'll say 28 games. For some of them, it's like 26. Some of them, it's like 29. But the average is about 28 games left in the season for all of these teams. So Wembanyama can only miss 3 more. Shea can miss 10. Jokic can miss 1. Luka can miss 5. Embiid's already out. Cade can miss 11. Jalen Brunson can miss 13. Spida, Donovan Mitchell, can also miss 13. Anthony Edwards, 7. Şengün, 10. Giannis is out. Devin Booker can miss, is at 5. And Jaylen Brown can miss 12. Now, this is where you're going to go with the rest of the email. So I'm going to take the ball here, brother. And let me not be rude. Let me just read this for you. I don't think Jokic in particular will qualify for the awards. Wemby and Luka still have more leeway, but I truly don't think any of them will qualify. Giannis has been disqualified. Yep, he's out. Embiid has missed too many games to qualify. That leaves SGA as the obvious front runner. But with the narrative around OKC this year and voter fatigue, will SGA actually win MVP? I'm not convinced. Is it crazy to consider that Cade or Jaylen Brown could win MVP this season? Detroit currently has a better record than OKC and has exploded into a contender. Jaylen Brown is holding the Celtics atop the standings without Tatum and having completely gutting the surrounding team. Yeah, look, dude, you sent in this email at the perfect time because I had just had the exact same mental exercise. And that's why I was just going to take the ball, because I'm like, you're kind of just going to say a bunch of shit that I was otherwise going to say. But, you know, you sent it in, so, you know, I'll read it. I think you're completely right. I think you're exactly right. I think the MVP is going to be really weird this year, and no matter how it shakes out at this point, I don't think it's going to be reflective of like just who the best player in the NBA was this season because of this 65 game rule. And you know, this is something, I mean, this is only like year 2 or year 3 of the rule even being a thing. And it was implemented to try to, you know, deter teams from sitting too many guys, or rather to deter like the individual players themselves from sitting out too many games and make them, you know, try to think a little bit more critically about it. But I think, you know, it just doesn't really work when, I mean, if we get to the end of the season, I really think right now, I think you're gonna have to give it to Cade. I mean, the conversation I think is just Cade, Jaylen Brown, and Shea. And that doesn't feel good. I mean, Jokic is the best player in the world, and it's open and shut. There's not a conversation to have about it. While at the same time, like, I do believe that Cade, by definition, has been the most valuable player this season. I think, well, if you go by most valuable, I think it would be him or Jaylen Brown, honestly, for the same points that you laid out, and for ones that with Jaylen Brown we've laid out, you know, in the last couple of weeks. And I think the only like piece of commentary that I've heard that I think is a better substitute for the 65 game rule, Bill Simmons thinks they should just switch it to minutes. I think his is like 2,000 minutes is what he said. And the argument is basically this, like, okay, if I'm a player who, if I you know, blew out my ACL like right now, and I'm out, you know, even at the start of next year, and I miss the first, you know, 14 games. So at that point, there's 68 left in the season. And so if I go on a stretch, basically, like if I go on a stretch, so you can miss 17 games a season. So what if I miss the first 16, and then, you know, I play 4 straight months of basketball, but because 1 week I get the flu, and I have to sit for 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, for 2 games. You know what I mean? I think that stinks. Like if you hypothetically miss the beginning of the season with an injury and then, where otherwise you played, every single game for the rest of the season, well, you still wouldn't qualify because you missed the beginning of it. And so if you just do minutes, because at least at that point, it points to, yeah, you did miss, a lot of games, but in the games that you did play, you were playing 35 to 40 minutes a night. You get what I'm saying? And so that is where the MVP would be reflective of who it's like, quote unquote, supposed to be, which is otherwise it should just be Jokic. I really think it should just be him again. And to your point about Shea, and voter fatigue and the way that I don't think it's the voters that are there with Oklahoma City, because I would agree with you that there is the shift on Oklahoma City is happening, has already happened. I don't really know what it is, where people never really got to like the sweetheart phase with them. There was certainly no honeymoon phase with the Thunder. Like I would argue the sweetheart phase, collectively, like as a national audience, our sweetheart phase with Oklahoma City was when they had Chris Paul in the bubble and they went like 8-0, or was that Phoenix that went 8-0? I'm getting confused. It's too many years ago. But Chris Paul in the bubble was when we were like, oh, this Oklahoma City team is going to be real. This is actually going to be real. Good for them. That was when like Lou Dort was the best that he had ever been, And so we never really got there as a nation, like, embracing Oklahoma City. The media certainly never got there. But at the same time, it's the media, it's the people that are voting on this shit. I don't think they've turned on Shea the way that everybody else seemingly has. And with everybody else, I think it just, it just comes down to, Thunder fans doing, film breakdown of the other team's, travels and double dribbles and shit like that. And how this was actually a foul and shit like that. And, how you have to have a fucking master's degree in officiating in the NBA in order to be an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. I think that just maybe rubs people the wrong way. I still don't even care that much. I'm just kind of like, yeah, they're good, and that's kind of it. I always kind of defend them for reasons that I'm not entirely sure of, just because I think like to hate on their personalities, I think is strange. Like they just care. It's like, so what do we want? Do we want guys to care, or do we not want them to care? Because when Wemby shows that he cares in the All-Star game, everybody's super fucking excited. You know what I mean? But then when Oklahoma City shows that they really give a shit about the game for 82 games out of the year, and even in the postseason, then they're corny. That they're all there's 10 of them doing the post game, and they're all just really excited that they're playing a dumb game, and that this is but they're assholes because of that. It's weird. I really, really don't get it. So I don't know if there's voter fatigue there. But I do agree that no matter how this shakes out, let's just pull this list up again and blow through it, really quick. So like Wemby can only miss 3 more games for the rest of the season. Yeah, I would just imagine that he's probably out of it. Shea can miss 10. I mean, depending on how the seeding goes, it's a tight enough race in the West that I don't think there's going to be like a week left in the season and the Thunder are just like resting players. Like you know what I mean? Like if they have the 1 seed locked up, they would, but I'm saying I don't think that they will. So I think 10 games, that's a good margin of error for Shea to still be in the mix here. I imagine that he will be eligible. Jokic can only miss 1. That just stinks. I mean, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? But I otherwise think he's going to cross that threshold of like 2,000 minutes. So that's really too bad because he's been the best player in the world. Luka can miss 5. Yeah, probably not. Or probably not, meaning he's not going to qualify. He's going to be out. Cade can miss 13. I'm sorry, Cade can miss 11. Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell are both 13. Yeah, super wide margins of error. Detroit is going to be in a close enough race for that 1 seed that, again, I don't think they're not really going to be resting players. I think these games are really going to matter. As long as these guys are staying healthy, I think that the last 3 that I named, Cade, Brunson, and Mitchell, I think they're all going to qualify. Ant's got 7 that he can miss. That one's a coin flip. I don't know. That one could go either way. I'm going to say that one's a coin flip. Şengün, I mean, this one does, if we're talking about the context of the MVP, that literally doesn't matter. Booker and Jaylen Brown can miss 12. So yeah, that's what it comes down to is Shea being able to miss 10, Cade being able to miss 11, and Jaylen Brown being able to miss 12. You don't have Tyrese Maxey on here. He's not going to be in the mix for what we're talking about here. But holy shit, you know what I mean? Oh my God, Tyrese Maxey. Wow. It was fun, the All-Star game. It was fun getting to see Cade and Book on the same team. I mean, that was exciting. Whoa, that got my heart rate up a little bit. Yeah, that was super fun. No, I think this is interesting though. I don't know if there being a weird MVP this year, which maybe there should be. I mean, it's been a weird season. If the Pistons, like you said, that at the All-Star break, the Pistons they don't have the most wins, but they do have the best winning percentage in the NBA over Oklahoma City. OKC's played like 2 or 3 more games, I think. So, you know, the Pistons have the edge there. I think they have maybe the same record against teams in the West. There's literally no way that's true. I don't know what I'm thinking of. It's the home record, I think, is what I'm thinking of. That's like basically the same. I guess, so what's my question? Does a weird MVP force them to change it? I think, well, if we go back to what I was saying at the beginning, where Adam Silver can find these little pockets on the margins that take away and distract from these larger problems, you know what I mean? These larger elephants in the room. If we can focus on the small chipmunks running underneath the couches and all the chairs and the ottoman, then maybe it will distract from the herd of elephants hiding behind the lampshade. You know what I mean? And so if eliminating the NBA draft, you know, and just letting them go straight to free agency to stop tanking is really on the table, then maybe doing something sinister and drastic with the way that guys are able to qualify for all NBA honors or for MVP. You know what I mean? Like maybe something like that would be on the table. Additionally, I think that another problem that if Adam Silver really wanted to, if he wanted to use the smaller problems to band-aid the bigger problems and just kind of not address, you know, those elephants, I think reducing the games, reducing to, you know, the amount of games that they're playing, they're at 82 right now. If you bump it down even 12 games, I just think that makes such a massive difference. I also think it's going to stink when, you know, as soon as the playoffs start, all of this stuff is going to go away. I don't think people are going to talk about this stuff. I mean, unless, because they're just going to talk about how awesome the league is again. They're just going to talk about how awesome the sport is because the playoffs are going to be good. Like no matter what, the playoffs are going to be good. They're going to manufacture a fight between the Pistons and the Knicks and the Hornets or whatever, you know, so that can drum up a few days worth of conversation about physicality in the NBA and how actually the 90s are back. And it's like, well, if you look at a lot of the Pistons numbers at the rim on both sides of the floor, and also just their defensive numbers, period, and their ability to hold teams under 90 points this season. Yes, actually, I would say, you know, by the way, the Pistons are still fighting people. Yes, by the way, I would say that the 90s are hashtag back in the NBA. No, I other than that, man, it's just such a dumb league, man. It's such a bad league, and it's so interesting how quickly it happened. It's been years that people have been, I don't know how to, man, like the way that people have talked about the NBA, it's like we saw the TV deal numbers and they show us like ratings and shit like that. And we see how many people follow these players on social media. And because it's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year league where there's always news, there's always a storyline, even when the league is not in season, there's always stuff to talk about. There's always something to pay attention to. I think because we're so constantly stimulated by the drama and the histrionics of the NBA, we've in so many ways been blind to what has been such obvious cracks in the foundation of the league. And so it's that same TV deal that we're talking about where we were distracted by how lucrative it was and how much money they're bringing in, that we just like, it's that same TV deal, man, that, to reference what I was talking about at the beginning, the NBA fighting a war on 5 fronts. I mean, the accessibility of the sport is a problem in and of itself. And that's something that the league absolutely right now is not going to address. I mean, you're seeing so many of the local markets between the NBA and MLB and NHL, you know, their networks, their providers are folding. They're defunct. They don't exist anymore. FanDuel Sports Network, like all this shit. Like, bro, like hockey games are going to be on the fucking MLB network next season. Like, what the hell? What's going on here? So, you know, while all of these, it's so interesting, man. While all of these local markets are floundering and, it's turnover after turnover. Every other year, there's a new, like when I was growing up, it was Fox Sports Detroit that did all of the sports. They did all of the games except for the Lions for all the teams. And that was it. And that was completely it. And then we went from, it wasn't FSD to straight to Bally, but you know what I mean? It was Bally, and then it was FanDuel Sports Network, and then it's going to be whatever it's going to be, Sinclair and their racket, man. It's just always something. And then on top of that, and this is this really is the thing that's been spoken to ad nauseum, and people have really gotten all their takes out about it. But I'm just saying, like, it is a problem that the NBA absolutely right now is not going to address, which is just how many hoops you have to jump through all the time to watch these games. Don't you think it's a little interesting that if we talk about the problems that, the NBA is having that they just don't address? I do think it's even interesting that as something as quote unquote serious as illegal streaming, like pirating the games, just like isn't really something that they talk about. Because even Roger Goodell will talk about it. Even I almost said Bud Selig. Even Rob Manfred will talk about it. Who knows what Gary Bettman talks about? Every time that guy opens his mouth, he's a fucking serpent. But you know what I mean? Even because it's not up to, hey, they don't know. Well, not that they don't know. I just mean, not that they don't know. I mean, like what are they going to do? Like, what are these commissioners going to do? Other than just being like, hey, we see you. We know what you're doing. Of course they know. Of course they know what we're doing. I don't think, and I will maintain this take because I just think it's right. Unless you completely murdered the internet and the access that we have to it, I think the genie's out of the bottle, and illegal streaming is not, it's not going away. The internet is too big. There are too many resources. There are too many people in too many different countries who are like doing the screen mirroring and shit like that. And then it's like, okay, even if you do just absolutely nuke the internet, people know how to access VPNs. Unless you do what Iran did for like 2 damn weeks and you just turn everything off, and then in turning the internet off completely so nobody can access anything, they were able to find out who was using Starlink, and then the government would show up to those people's houses, and then, well, I guess we don't, they were dark for so long. We imagine we know what happened to those people. The numbers of how many people were killed has fluctuated dramatically over the last couple of weeks. Originally it was 3,000, then it was 10, then it was 20, then it was 30, then it was 60, then it was 30 again. So, some unspeakable horrors, unknowable horrors, seemingly, because people are still getting reconnected to the internet over there. I'm just saying, I don't know how that's something that you could really kill here in the US at this point, or really anywhere. CopingHourSubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description wherever it is that you listen to this program. This is a long one. It's a long one, but I think it's like team picking etiquette. I'm pretty sure is what this is. So subject line, moral panic, is hatred a valid reason to pick a team? From James. James, welcome to the show, brother. Hi, Mr. Hour. Recently, I've seen a lot of discourse online about the valid ways to pick your favorite sports team and what they are. It seems that the consensus valid options are: 1, you grew up / have close family ties to that city / area. 2, you inherited your fandom from your dad / family members. Or 3, you picked the team when you were 7 because they wore your favorite color. Yeah, those are pretty much the 3. I would throw in there as like another reason. Like for me, I always say this, like the reason I started playing football was Brian Urlacher. And so I loved the Bears because of Brian Urlacher and Devin Hester. So like growing up, and there's just a player that you attached to. And so just by way of that, you know what I mean? You just start rooting for the team as an extension. I would throw that in as another reason. I'm sure there are a couple other ones that you guys could throw in, but for the most part, yeah, I think that those are pretty much the main food groups. Back to the email. I only started watching the NFL at the beginning of the 23-24 season. And unfortunately, none of these options really apply to me. I grew up in Toronto. You did say, note, please only pronounce the first T in Toronto. I'm not a fucking fool. Not a fool. I like to think as somebody who grew up in Michigan, and there are a couple other states that are like this. My life growing up in Michigan was, I was aware of Canadian culture and the little nuances like that, because it was a custom that as soon as somebody turned 19, you would take your enhanced license. Didn't need a passport to go to Canada and Michigan. You just needed an enhanced license. I don't know if that's still true. I imagine it is. and then they would go across the bridge, and then they would get drunk in Canada. That was like a rite of passage in Michigan, was you turn 19 and you go get drunk in Canada. This has nothing to do with Toronto, but I'm just saying, although I really appreciate that you felt like you needed, you know what I mean? Like, you're just standing up for the six, and I respect that. I'm just letting you know I was a little offended because I don't need to be told that. Toronto. How about that? Toronto. It's like Louisville. There's Louisville. It's not Louisville. Louisville. You know, there are a couple more like that. There's one more that I can't think of. Louisville is one of them. And then, yeah, Toronto. We're on the same page here. It's the same thing. Let's get back to it. I grew up in Toronto, which is very loosely a Bills-inclined city, but has no clear team that you have to support. Growing up as a Raptors/Leafs fan, I have, however, fostered an incredibly strong hatred for the cities of Boston and Philadelphia. If they made a professional Quidditch league tomorrow, I would happily tell you that Boston and Philly are dirty cheaters with the worst fan bases in the league. When I first started watching the NFL, I didn't have an obvious team to support, so I decided that I would just kind of watch random games and see if a team spoke to me. Cut to week 15, and the Eagles are falling apart after starting 10-1. Oh, what a good year that was. Oh, my God. Oh, what did you say, 23-24? Is that when it was? Oh, my God. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I really thought that I thought the team was going to have to move, man. It was so bad. People were so mad. Cut to week 15, and the Eagles are falling apart after starting 10-1, and it looks like they're going to choke the division. I was watching them play the Seahawks, and they famously lost the game thanks to a super clutch Drew Lock-led touchdown drive that scored in the last 30 seconds of the game. While watching this drive, I was completely tense, praying to anything that the Eagles would lose, and I made a promise to myself that if the Seahawks completed this comeback, I would pledge my allegiance to them. Sure enough, I then decided that I was a Seahawks fan. Now, I'm not sure if you've been keeping up with the NFL lately, but the Seahawks actually just won a championship, and against a team from Boston, no less. I honestly had no idea that they were going to be good because my frame of reference is the NBA, where a team usually has to be a top 3 seed for a few years before they can actually win. Now let me break it for a second there. The way you phrased that the first time I read it, I was like, that is it. That's funny. Yeah, you don't have to be that in the NFL. You don't. Like, I'm not saying this, for like home cooking purposes. Would it shock you if the Lions won the Super Bowl next year, and strip it of the context of it being the Lions winning the Super Bowl, like, what do you mean? Like, just that as a sentence, but just think of them as a team and the fact that they had the year that they did this year. You know what I mean? They were as down as they were this year. Would it surprise you if, and this is like a more reasonable and, higher level of this, would it surprise you if Buffalo won? Well, they had a good year this year. If Baltimore won the Super Bowl next year, Kansas City would be surprised. You know what I mean? Like, in the NFL, you just have a shit year. It happens all the time. You have a good team. You have a bad year. You bounce back the next year. You're in the NFC Championship game. It happens all the time. Seattle wasn't a bad team last year. They weren't a bad team last year. They just got the right quarterback. And that was, you know what I mean? That's kind of it. They went and got Shaheed, and they got JSN, and they just are good. They were just good. Nobody was expecting them to be as good as they were this year, to be fair. The Sam Darnold thing was not a guarantee when it happened. It was just kind of like is this like some Matt Flynn business that the Seahawks just did here? Suffice it to say that it was not hashtag Matt Flynn business. Well, actually, the irony there of what I'm saying is I said that as just a joke. Well, it was Seattle that gave Matt Flynn all that fucking money in the first place, wasn't it? Guy literally threw for 500 yards in one game against the Lions, and then the Seahawks, I swear it was the Seahawks, we're like, here's $50 million. Yeah. No, I don't know. You're not crazy. Let's finish up the email though. Now I feel a bit weird calling myself a Seahawks fan because I've very recently started supporting them, and none of the 3 above reasons for choosing a team apply to me. I feel like I kind of come across as a bandwagon now. My question to you, Mr. Auer, is whether my reason for becoming a Seahawks fan is valid. Is hatred really that powerful of a force in sports fandom? Do I have to suck it up and be a Bills fan instead? Do I have to sit out this championship and then get shut up? No, you don't have to do any of this. But you did include at the end of this, by the way, you say obligatory sports take, and then you say something that is so goddamn long that I cannot possibly read it because it's going to confuse me too much and I'm going to get too far off the road. You do not get an obligatory sports take when you just sent in a fucking sports email. That's not how it works. When you spend the better part of 10 minutes typing something up to me that in nature is about sports and the team that you are choosing to root for, you don't get to say at the end, obligatory sports take. The whole fucking thing was a sports take. So you don't get to throw in another one. This is just a PS. Here's another take for you. These words matter, man. These words matter a lot to me. And I'm gonna undermine your question entirely. And the way that you figured out that this is the team that you're rooting for. I'm gonna disregard it completely. And I'm gonna tell you what I tell everybody, what I believe in my heart, which is it could not possibly matter less. It couldn't possibly matter less. I mean that in the nicest and best way possible. Do you like watching the Seahawks now? And it's easy to say you do because they just won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Do you like the colors? Do you like the players? Do you like the stadium? Lumen is a really, really nice field. That's a lot of really good fans there too. Even when the Seahawks are bad, it's good atmosphere. You know what I mean? That's a scary place to play, even if the Seahawks are 0-15. You know what I mean? I don't want to go there for the afternoon game. Do you? No, probably not. So, like, my philosophy on this is always, like, if I'm trying to figure out, like, if there's this, like, you know, watching soccer, like, when you're trying to figure out what team you want to root for, I always start just by watching who the best teams are. Because if I'm going to watch a new sport or like a new league or something like that, well, why don't I start with like the best that the game is played in that league? You know what I mean? So like, that's why I immediately was like, oh, City is just awesome. They're just the best because they were literally the best. Yes. Yeah. I'm like, okay, so who are the best players? Because if I want to, you know what I mean? I got to figure out who are the guys playing at the highest level and then how is it that they play? And that's just kind of where I go from there. You know what I mean? Seattle doesn't really have that many of those guys, to be honest with you. That's not true. I mean, JSN, you could absolutely put on there. Kenneth Walker did just win the Super Bowl MVP. Sam Darnold, you know, is what. But you know what I mean? Like, they don't have an Erling Haaland. You know what I mean? They don't have a guy like that. I don't think this is correct. And also, like, I don't think that you're framing this like this choice was born out of hatred. I guess it was because you said, please God, if the Eagles lose this game, I'll root for the Seahawks for the rest of my life. No, this is with the big man upstairs, brother. You wrote a check and you got to cash it. You know what I mean? I did this one time in my life. So this is what your email made me think of. I remember playing backyard baseball. It was one of the most surreal moments of my life. Like, when I say this, it's going to sound so fucking dumb. But I swear this is true. I was a kid and I was the youngest. I was in my family and in the friend group of like our, you know, like the friend group that you had when you were growing up and you would knock on their door. Hey, could they come outside and play? That friend group. I was the youngest out of everybody. And so when we would play sports, like, usually I would be the one who wasn't the best because I was the youngest. And when it came to backyard baseball, we never played with an actual baseball. We would just play with tennis balls. It's a lot safer. And, you know, it's such a tight, it doesn't matter. We would just play with tennis balls. We had been playing for, 5 years backyard baseball. I was like maybe 10 at the time, and I had never hit a home run. Everybody had hit a home run. It always happened all the time, but I was too little and I had never hit a home run. And I remember sitting there at the plate and I remember saying to myself, if I hit a home run here, I'll believe in God. And I meant it in my core. Like, I was like, I'll fucking do anything to hit a home run right here. Like, if you're listening, like, please give me the I, for real, as a kid, was like, I'll believe in God if I hit a home run here. And I went yard on, like, the next pitch. And I remember rounding the bases and thinking to myself, shit. I was like, I gotta pay this back for the rest of my life. I have to. That, to me, is more of what you did here. Even though it is true that it was born out of, I just hate the Eagles so much and want them to lose so bad that I will root for the team that is big. No, I hear what you're saying. I think this is just more like a in the universe thing, though. You get what I'm saying? I think this is more about that and like the cosmic fabric of the deal that you made in your head and how I think you just kind of have to, I think you got to see this one through. Does that make sense? But otherwise, it's not real, man. Like, you don't owe anything to anybody. Like, I shouldn't be a Leicester City fan right now. They're probably going to get relegated again. They just lost in the FA to Southampton. They get a red card in the last fucking 4 games. None of the players want to play there. They're going to get sent down to League One and have half of their guys on Premier League wages. A 6 point, it's really too fucking bad that, Leicester City isn't Manchester City, a club that is so vital to the economy of the sport that when they cheat for 10 fucking years, they literally cannot get punished because it would be, again, too damaging to the economy of the sport. If Manchester City got hit with a transfer ban or some like super substantial like $1 billion fine, like a 30-point deduction, you can't do that to City, but you can do it to a club like Leicester City who overspends. They're spending more than they're actually bringing in. Yeah, sure, we can hit them with fucking 6 counts of PSR breach, and we'll deduct them 6 points. And oh, thank you. Oh, it could have been more than that. It could have been 9. It could have been 12. But oh, thank God, it was only 6. I shouldn't be rooting for them right now, but I just have a blind allegiance to the club, right? I should only be focusing on the teams that are actually good right now because this is a game. This is a game. And even though, like, yes, loyalty does matter, I think it says a lot about you and your character if you're just, like, jumping ship the moment that your team stinks. Because it's like, well, if you do that with something as mundane as a sports team, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy to think that you would do something shitty to people in real life. And some, you know what I mean? And to some extent, it's not that serious. But you know what I mean? There's some truth to it. There's some degree of it. And so I don't want to say, like, just fucking abandon teams and root for different ones all the time. But, like, you're not, like, a better fan than somebody else just because they remember when the Seahawks lost the Super Bowl in 2005, you know, because they were at, you know, when what is it, Madden 07 that Sean Alexander was on the cover of, you know, just because they were at the midnight release at GameStop for Sean Alexander on the cover of Madden and you were fucking 10 when that happened, you know, that doesn't make you a worse fan. It just means that you didn't know or you didn't care at the time. That's kind of all that it is. That's really all that it is. You know, just zoom out, just look at it a little differently. Alrighty, folks. Spotify. We took our kid to the zoo today. He did not care at all. We were not there for very long. He just didn't care. We really were excited. We thought he was going to care. He didn't care. When you go to the zoo, what exhibit are you going to first? So if we weren't doing it as like a planned, you know, structured thing with our kid, usually we would go see the monkeys first, or maybe the lions first is what we would do. And then everything else is just kind of either on the way or just like, yeah, we're here. Sure, let's go look at a fucking giraffe. Well, giraffes are kick-ass, or like a meerkat or something. You know what I mean? Like one of those little critters, little vulture or something. I tell you what, though, we were there, and one of the first, things that we passed was the coyote enclosure. I'm like, what the fuck? These guys must be so mad. You know how many wild coyotes there are in Chicago? Thousands of them. We see them all the time. There's so many wild coyotes in Chicago, like in the city. And I'm like, there are these 2 that are in this cage. I'm like, dude, they must be so pissed. Why the fuck do they got to stay in here? But all the other coyotes just get to, like, literally right beyond these walls. They're just like 10 coyotes running around. But okay, whatever. Bullshit. When you go to the zoo, what are you checking out first? What's number 1 on the priority list? All right. Apple Podcasts. What's up? If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, nice little comment for the algorithm. Make sure to keep primary control in check. And I will catch you guys in the next one.